What made the popular kid at school the unpopular kid? In elementary school, popularity was already sort of a nebulous concept, but one boy got pantsed at recess and was found to be wearing diapers. Pretty sure he was incontinent, which has got to be a rough freaking road for a little kid, especially since he didn't seem to have any other noticeable disabilities. The full story. So this was in the late 90s, maybe 1998 or 99, and we were in second grade. This kid, we'll just call him Timmy, was pretty well liked. He was a nice kid and got along with everyone pretty well. And for whatever reason, the boys of my class were comparing undies on the playground, like, oh, I got Scooby Doo, or I got spaceships, or whatever. Why? Couldn't tell you. Little kids are freaking weird. So Timmy was the holdout of the group, wouldn't tuck down his pants to show what prints he had. He got accused of having girly underwear, and one thing led to another, culminating in a couple of boys grabbing him and pulling down his pants, and boom. Wasn't what anyone else was expecting. Timmy didn't have girly undies, he just had on a big old diaper. In hindsight, it made a lot of things make sense. He had carte blanche to leave class to the nurse, he wore baggy pants, and every once in a while the classroom stank something fierce. He got teased pretty badly that day and for a while afterwards. Though people eventually mellowed out about it once it was no longer the new thing. The story doesn't end there, though. This was one of the earliest moments in my life that I understood what empathy was. One of my biggest childhood nightmares got presented right in front of me. I was a bedwetter from the ages of 3 to around 13, and not just occasionally, but like every single night. So for most of that time, I had to wear something similar every night. I was terrified that someone would find out and my life would be over. I was already a little socially outcast because I was an odd kid, which only magnified my fears. To my shame, I made fun of Timmy that day and several days after. I'd call him names or tug at his waistband or whatever. It wasn't until I mentioned to my mom about him that I got an earful and a reminder that I had to wear the same thing at night. That stuck with me, and not much later than that, I apologized to him and instead tried to befriend him. I didn't have a lot of friends, and he had lost a lot of his. Funnily enough, I guess 7-year-olds don't have a strong sense of loyalty. We were pretty good friends throughout elementary school. I told him my own secret to make him feel better, and I think it did, though I'm sure he was pretty pissed since I was such a jerk about it at first. He was the only friend I felt completely comfortable having sleepovers with due to our collective shame. He moved away the first year of middle school, which was a bummer, and we didn't really reconnect at all until early high school where we talked online. He never told me the exact reason that he had to wear them, or if he did, I don't remember. But it really seemed like he just couldn't control his bladder or bowels at all, so maybe he was incontinent due to a nerve injury or something? I don't know. But that's pretty much the gist of it. It seriously impacted his social life, but things certainly got better as people moved on. If anyone has any questions, I could try to answer, but I think I laid out as much as I could remember of something from like over 20 years ago. Dude, kids, any day will find anything to make fun of. Story 2. I went to school from 4th grade to high school with a kid my age whose father was a prominent city official in our town. Even though we lived only a few blocks from one another, we were in different worlds. My background was much more blue-collar, and unfortunately, I lived in an alcoholic and physically cruel household. For these and other reasons I never understood, his mother despised me, and she wanted her son to have nothing to do with me. She actually called my mother once to suggest that she keep me away from her son, since our class in life was so very different. I found him smart and funny and fascinating, and we palled around. He wore slacks while I wore jeans, and his suede shoes were much better than my sneakers. By our high school years, he was a football letterman while I was a band geek, and he was in college prep while I took vocational courses. We still knew each other, but he was in a college track and I was living day by day. As graduation approached, we learned that his parents had worked with a local congressman for his appointment to West Point. Wow. Tragically, the night of graduation, he and his girlfriend went out with him driving hammered on a country road. He hit an oak tree and she was gone. That's the last I ever heard of him, but once in a while I Google his name just to see if he might surface somewhere. I sometimes think of how mortified his status-conscious mother must have felt, and wonderful about his girlfriend's family, and of course, what happened to my friend who ended someone just before his life began. I wish him well over 40 years later. I'm just not sure what happens when life seems to be laid out before you with concrete expectations, and it all goes so tragically wrong in the blink of an eye. Story 3. A somewhat more lighthearted one. We had a kid I'll call Dan who was incredibly popular because he played football. came from a wealthy-ish family, and had a whole bunch of girlfriends. He was quite stereotypically a straight kid who liked manly things and was academically gifted, but was never a bully. He was popular because of a combination of these things. When we came back from summer holidays in year 10, Dan had totally changed. Long emo hair, eyeliner, slouched when he walked, listened to metal, gave up football, came out as bi, and dated another male student. Nobody could quite decide what to make of it, and because we were teens, it made our class uncomfortable. So sadly, for about 6 months, Dan was pretty much a non-person. Then one day, something just gave, and we realized Dan was still the person he was before, and we were the ones being a-holes. He never quite became the popular kid again, but everyone at school went back to liking him, and he had a large social circle. Stayed at our school right through sixth form and graduated with excellent marks. I have no idea what happened to him after school, and looking back, such a sudden personality shift should maybe have rung some alarm bells, but I do think about him from time to time. I was an unpopular bullied kid, but he was never mean to me. Good on you guys for actually having the self-reflection to realize it was on you. That really takes something as teenagers. Story 4. She called the exchange student a peasant. This was 10 years ago when I was in year 12, and for some reason, we had a bunch of exchange students in the midst of everyone dating and partying, and I wouldn't know, I was doing work. Anyway, the popular girls were a group of maybe 10 girls that were human rakes with platinum or chocolate-dyed hair and a fascination with designer brands. They had cars too, because I remember them driving past me at a bus stop screaming at me to die. So basically, a hot Swiss girl shows up, and the pettiest of them all didn't like her having the popular guys like her and being a polite guest, etc. Apparently, one day this happened in CAFS, Community and Family Studies class. The popular girl in question shows up on a Monday, and no one is talking to her or sitting next to her. So I asked someone. So on the prior weekend, they were having a house party, and Kelsey, a popular girl, started texting people that she'd stolen her parents' credit card to buy a dress to wear for about $300, then showed up and had called the girl a peasant for not having a wardrobe of clothes to wear to their blowout party. There were rumors that she slept around for cash, did tricks that her friends were extorting her for cash. We graduated 4 months later, only a few people spoke to her, and she was smashed at the formal, and most of them have gone off to work in real estate. Story 5. I swam competitively through high school, but just wasn't quite good enough to continue in college. But to stay connected to aquatics, I became a lifeguard and swim instructor for our university pool and all their school and community events. Many of the swimmers and water polo players were lifeguards/instructors themselves on the off-seasons. Our head guard was the polo team's BMOC. He was a beast in the pool. He was cool, witty, handsome, the whole shebang. We'll call him Steve. Anyway, we get to work one morning and our big boss was out of his office, already a rare occurrence, and called us all together. I arrived a little late, so I only caught the end where he kept saying, "No one talk about Steve in front of the guests. I don't even want to hear his name." Once we split to start the day, I was trying to find out what happened. Someone pulled out their phone and there he was, Steve's mugshot after being arrested. Turns out he had a part-time job as a high school coach, and you can complete the picture. I've never seen someone disappear so fast. His name was removed from team rosters, media promotionals, his position as a guard vacated and refilled, etc., etc. It was a weird time. Story 6. He got into legal trouble because he and his team embezzled and misused about $250,000 worth from the student union. The university kicked him out, stopped paying the annual $2 million to the student union, withhold funds, although that was later overruled by the courts, and revoked the privileges granted to the student union. Earlier this year, they stated that they and students have no affiliation to the student union after 1 year of negotiations. His team was still running the student union because they were re-elected. They bought votes by offering pancakes, waffles, and donuts for those who vote for their party, and had street volunteers that would pressure students to vote for the party. It actually led to a law being passed in Ontario that prevented universities from forcing students to pay non-mandatory fees. The scandal was revealed by a student party called the Rhino Party back in December 2018. January and February, heads started rolling and law and accounting firms started getting involved to figure out how much was spent. It was rumored the figure was anywhere from $100,000 to $900,000. Ontario provincial lawmakers passed a law in the summer of 2018. Starting fall 2019, I had the choice whether I wanted to pay auxiliary fees to support the student newspaper, NGOs that operated in the school, support the student union, etc. That provincial law was recently overturned by the courts this year, so starting next fall, I am forced to pay fees associated with groups that I don't support. He went from being popular to being a school meme. There's actually a lot of bank statements available that showcase what they bought. They were re-elected? Damn, IDK, I'm just so focused on the sentence where they bought votes by offering pancakes, waffles, and donuts. I need one of those right now, and if you're constantly hungry like me, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. If anything, I've got more stories to give to you. Story 7. A popular guy in my year pissed himself during an exam in our gym hall. Unfortunately for him, the biggest a-hole in our year was sitting directly behind him. He immediately stood up and yelled, "He pissed himself." He proceeded to get teary-eyed and say, "It's my energy drink. It's spilled over and over," before the exam supervisor literally dragged him out of the hall. 2 weeks later, he returned to school, the unpopular kid, and kept a low profile for a while until it eventually died down and he climbed the social ranks once more. That is, until an episode of The In-Betweeners, a popular TV show in the UK, aired in which one of the main characters pooped himself in the exam hall, and it reminded everyone of what happened, effectively nuking his popularity all over again. Story 8. There was one kid in my class who was the son of our math teacher. He was crazy popular because he was able to help everyone out with their homework for that class. Turns out he was actually snooping through his dad's notes to get answers. The teacher naturally got super suspicious after a while, so he deliberately made a fake answer sheet. Of course, the kid grabbed it and noted it all down. It was full of wrong answers, so blatant that anyone who even slightly paid attention in class would know they were way off base. The kid handed out the answers anyway, and in an instant made about half the class bomb, and his popularity dropped like a rock as they all accused him of deliberately making them fail. They moved him to another class, and they never had an incident of cheating again. Story 9. There was a really pretty girl that was quite popular in my high school. She was a bit snobby to people and sort of rude. I recall one time she threw a textbook at my girl because I was leaning back in my desk and thought it was funny. I guess it kind of was, thinking back. She also liked to make fun of the fact that I was Mexican on more than one occasion. Anyways, she gained significant weight our senior year in high school, and I guess a lot of the popular kids decided to disown her for it. I never actually heard anything, but I recall her sitting all alone at lunch one day. Not my best moment, but I walked by her, pointed, and plainly said, "You earned this." Story 10. When I was in primary school, the popular kid thought it would be funny to flush the class pet, a hamster called Nibbles, down the toilet. All the kids thought the hamster would have passed. He quickly became known as the kid who ended a hamster. He ended up changing schools for another reason. BTW, the hamster survived. I don't know how pipes work, but I heard the caretaker eventually found him. The school still gave Nibbles away after that. If you were wondering about the kid, he had ADHD or something like that. He was transferred to a school that specializes in kids with behavioral problems. He has a stable job as a bookmaker, but that's all I know about him. Also, although we were told Nibbles survived, we never saw him again. All we know is that he was given away to a random family. There is a possibility the teacher made that up, as another Redditor pointed out, and Nibbles actually did perish and they just didn't want to upset us. Story 11. She got pregnant, and the father could have been one of two guys, both of whom were boyfriends of her close friends, and neither of whom wanted anything more to do with her. My school actually had really good sex education, and we knew about contraception from the age of about 11. Plus, this was the UK, where contraception is free and easy to get, so she couldn't blame ignorance or lack of resources. She tried for the Woe Is Me Act, and nobody wanted to be around her anymore. Since a lot of people are talking about double standards, I'll add that both potential fathers were also ostracized after that. They cheated on their girlfriends, both of whom were well-liked, and had been stupid enough to not even use contraception when they also couldn't plead ignorance or lack of access. As for the girl in question, she wasn't ostracized for being intimate or even for being pregnant, really. The primary reason was that she'd slept with her closest friends as boyfriends, and again, not even used protection. Plus, when she went around looking for sympathy afterwards, rather than just accepting that she'd done something wrong, that made it so much more worse. She tried to claim it was all her friends' fault for being bad girlfriends, and if they weren't, their boyfriends wouldn't have been interested in her. Well, the two potential fathers were responsible as much as her. Story 12. Stopped coming to school, didn't even do her exams in the end, just sat at home and smoked grass all the time. Didn't even work, she just got boyfriends who would pay for everything for her. Became quote-unquote spiritual, got the Hindu symbol tattooed on her finger, got dreadlocks, etc. Posted weird photos on her Instagram. It's hard to explain, but she just sort of became weird. I once heard her talking to a bunch of 13-year-olds about how her boyfriend just got out of prison. She also always spoke about wanting to have a baby. This grass-smoking, non-working 18-year-old girl wanted a child. In the end, nobody in my school even spoke to her anymore, even if her friends didn't like her much because she was sort of a witch. She was popular because she was super pretty and smart. It's sad. She obviously had no direction in her life. Her only qualifications are the exams we did when we were 15. Her brother and sister were still in the school. They were really nice and basically the opposite to her. I hope they do well. Story 13. He punched a girl. In year 10 of secondary school, a girl spent months being physically cruel to him, slapping him, kicking him, punching him, throwing things at him while screaming at him. Sometimes even in the middle of the class, but no one would do anything about it, not even the teachers. His little sister passed, so I guess he just wasn't going to deal with anything. She swung at him, he dodged and got her good with a right hook. Knocked her to the ground in one bit. She started crying and howling. 3 teachers pinned this guy down to the ground. Didn't matter what he was going through, how hard his life had been. As soon as he swung back at his offender, he was outcasted from all of his friend groups at school. He eventually transferred out of course, but not after he went through a complete social phasing. Nothing happened to the girl after either. Everyone saw her as a victim after all, so nothing was done about it. Some people knew she was the one in the wrong, but anyone that spoke out about it got the same treatment as the lad did. Story 14. That was me. My grades got bad in 4th grade, so my mom came to school with me all week and sat next to me all day, every day, in an attempt to scare me into improving them. After that week, all my friends changed. Nobody I was friends with wanted to play during recess. They all thought my mom was crazy after that, so they stopped coming over after school to play. I got teased for it until 6th grade started by my former friends. Anytime I'd try to make friends with a new kid, they'd be friendly at first, but eventually just join in on the teasing and thinking I was weird. But I did make new friends eventually, and people did leave me alone and we all moved on. I don't hold grudges on a bunch of kids about it, whatever. It was weird in high school, seeing all the things my old friends were getting up to while I was too busy skipping out and getting baked with my friends at the time. They all knew my mom was crazy. That's fixed. It's far from normal behavior though, right? Story 15. We had this one guy in high school who people generally liked, but over time became this complete loser. He was aspiring to be a pilot and always talked about he and his dad, how they would fly together on weekends. For the most part though, he was a pretty cool kid, and then high school hit. During high school, he became this complete sociopathic loser who did everything he could try and come off as cool. He got into bikes and would always come to school decked out in biker gear. Fair enough if he didn't walk around with his chest puffed out and a bike helmet in his left hand. He was very obviously trying to seem like a baddie, but nobody took him seriously because he was a joke. He always acted super pretentious around people, talking like he knew everything about cars and bikes, but every car mechanic in our school knew he was full of crap. Our school had this video production program where every Friday we would broadcast an episode of skits we worked on over the week. Apparently, one week, this kid hijacked the entire program just to put a 4-minute montage of him driving around the school parking lot on his bike. He struggled to keep jobs because he, for some reason, thought it was cool to get fired with a bang. One job in particular he got fired for, eating ice cream topping with a spoon in front of customers. He did dumb crap like this 9 times in 1 year and still thought he was being funny despite destroying his reputation. Last thing I remember is him losing it and dropping out senior year and moving to Nashville to live in this guy's garage. He currently works as a prison guard and I genuinely fear for his life. I hope you enjoyed the video and all the crazy stories in it. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you're also going to enjoy people who ran into the weird kid from school years later. How did they turn out? Story 2 will surprise you. Surprised me. I'll see you in that video and thank you for watching this one.